Hello, Dental A Team listeners. This is Kiera Dent, and I just wanted to say thank you so much for being part of my Dental A Team family. I seriously love doing this podcast. I thought I was going to hate it, and I love it. I love it so much because I get to connect with you. I get to hear how this podcast is helping you and your practice be better. So if you have loved this podcast and you are willing to share, I would greatly appreciate if you'll share with your friends, if you'll leave us a review, if you'll give us 5 stars, anything you can do. Just like you guys grow your practices, we're trying to grow this podcast to positively impact the world of dental. This is how we get to grow our Dental A Team family. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoy the show. Welcome to the Dental A Team podcast. We're your hosts, Kiera Dent
and Dr. Mark Costas.
Mark and I had this crazy idea that maybe we could combine a dentist and a team member's perspective because let's face it, dentistry can be a challenging profession with those two perspectives. And Dental A Team podcast was created.
I'm a practicing dentist, a multiple practice owner, a dental performance coach, and the founder of the Dental Success Institute.
I've been a dental assistant, treatment coordinator, scheduler, biller, office manager, current practice owner, and international dental consultant. Mark and I don't just understand you, we are you.
Our goal is to positively impact the world of dentistry by sharing our lessons learned from the road in hundreds of dental offices.
2 perspectives, 1 mission, to help dental professionals reach their full potential. Welcome to the Dental A Team podcast. Hello, Dental A Team listeners. This is Kiera, and it has just been a podcasting morning, guys. I got up early, 4 a.m. Eastern time, so all you sleeping at 1, or if you're still working, that could have been a funny moment. But I podcasted, and I did 3 before I took off this morning, and now I've landed. I've got about a 40-minute drive to the next office, so I really do feel like a cruise ship. But I wanted to do a follow-up to a podcast that I was doing earlier where I talked about doctors being a certain type of doctor. Are you the educator doctor? Are you the... and this also goes for treatment coordinators. It goes for dental assistants. Like, who are you in this scheme of personalities? So we talked about, we've got the educator doctor who gets really complex and scientific, and we go above and beyond. That's the educator doctor. You need to be an educating doctor. I'm not saying not to be an educating doctor, but what I'm saying is there is a fine balance, and we've got to learn to walk the line of being helpful versus talking patients out of treatment because you lost them. So we've got our educating doctors. We have our Over-Diagnoser and our Under-Diagnoser. We have our fear-driven doctor. We have our doctor who is all about cost. We have our doctor who's about insurance. And we have our doctor that just wants to do whatever the patient wants to do. So I believe those were the ones that we talked about on the last one. If I missed one, I apologize. But we're going to dive into those because I want to, on this podcast, talk about what to do for whichever personality type you are. All of us have our favorite one. I tend to be, in all those, I tend to be fear. I don't like rejection, so I might get a little afraid. And then I also might be the too direct. Maybe I'm a little blunt. Maybe we should add another category. Or I also think I might fall under the category of over-educating. I like patients to know what's going on. I want them to feel confident, and I might get on a tangent where that tends to be my fall. So really assess yourselves. You guys see how right now trying to figure out which one I am was a little tricky for me. It was kind of tricky for me to say which one I was, but when I had to look at it, I'm like, I am afraid of somebody saying no to me. I don't like that. I also probably am going to over-educate, and it's probably to overcompensate, so that way somebody doesn't tell me no. So figure out who you are. Are you the educator where you get really complex and scientific? Are you the over-diagnoser where you get pretty aggressive? Are you the under-diagnoser? I think that also ties into fear or just doing what the patient wants as an under-diagnoser. Some people just are going to keep watching that cavity get bigger and bigger and bigger. I am not a doctor. I don't claim to be a doctor. I have heard from several doctors, once it's a watch, like what are we watching? Are we watching that decay get bigger? I am aware that it doesn't mean it's going to crack tomorrow or that cavity's not going to get bigger. And, but I do know when a crack's in a windshield, when you get a rock chip, it will either... It's going to get bigger. It's there. It exists. So either we can fix it when it's predictable, or we can let it go until it's very unpredictable and we don't know our results. So we've got our educator, our over-diagnoser, our under-diagnoser, our fear, our cost, our insurance, and the last one is the people pleaser, doing whatever they want us to do. Okay, so if you are an educator, that's what you are. You tend to be there. And honestly, know thyself and be free. It's okay. Just know thyself and be free. You're totally fine, whoever you are. If you don't know who you are, it's really hard to make any changes. So if you are the educator, I want you to think of how you can simplify your conversation. Maybe you need to set a timer in your operatory so you only go in and do a 2-minute exam. I think a lot of times these educators, some pit that we fall into is we think time equates value. So if I'm in there for only 2 minutes, they're not getting a lot of value. They're not going to like me. They're not going to say yes to treatment. That could be a piece in this. Sometimes I watch my podcast and I'm like, oh shoot, I'm only at 8 minutes. They're not going to get enough value out of this. When it's like, no, I just slam dunked that, shut off the mic, they're good. So really, we have to remember time does not equate value. So if you're an over-educator, you talk too much, you make it too complicated, you make it too scientific. One, ask your team of how you could say it differently. A lot of team members, because they didn't go to dental school, they're going to be able to tell you how they say this really simply. So you might get into all the nuances of why we have perio. Ask a team member to explain perio to you. Go explain perio in 30 seconds to a lot of strangers and see if they can get it. I believe that when you can get your explanation down to 30 seconds where 95% of people can get it, you won. I talk about my husband a lot. I really think he's one of the best pharmacists I've ever met. And a lot of patients really like him because he simplifies, like, gosh, you guys tell me like Flexeril or gosh, I can't even remember half the drugs that I used to know all 100 drugs because I memorized them with him while he was in pharmacy school. But when he talks to me about all these different things that honestly are words that I've never heard of, he loses me. It's over my head. And so when he can break it down and be like, okay, Kiera, so like your body works like an engine in a car and this is this. And I mean, I can't repeat it right now, but when he explains it to me, it makes way more sense to where I actually for the next week could go explain that to somebody else. So I really think find out how you can get this down in 30 seconds. I really do believe that you can have your team members, you can talk to strangers, talk to your family, somebody who's not in your industry, and see if you can get all your procedures explained within 30 seconds. When you can do that, you are going to be less scientific, not as complicated, and more direct and to the point. A lot of times we'll get really long-winded because we feel we've got to keep going around and around in circles trying to explain it in different ways when we actually lost our audience or they got it at the beginning. We were with a waitress last night at dinner and she was telling us the specials and it was crazy because I watched the table to see. She overcomplicated the specials. There was like 7 specials. I can't even remember what half of them were. The first one, super interested in. Second one, she was starting to lose us. Third, fourth, fifth, by the end, we were all just looking at our menus because she had lost us. That's what happens in these exams when you over-educate and there's too much going on for your patients. So simplify that up. Go in, set a timer on your exams. Remember, time does not equate value. Being simple, of course you can add a little bit more in there. Of course you can explain more. And I think for you educators that really this is your thing, you get scared like, well, maybe I didn't answer all their questions. So a key phrase for you would be, what questions do you have at the end of your exam? By saying, do you have any questions? That patient can easily say no. If you say, what questions do you have for me? They can answer. They can ask their question. The long-winded people be like, you know what? Kiera's awesome. She's my hygienist. She's going to take over from here. She'll answer those questions for you. She's better at explaining that than I am. And you can get out of there. But by asking that phrase of what questions do you have for me at the end of it, you'll be able to see, did I simplify that enough? Or did I make it confusing in their mind? I also wanted to point out with this, when a patient asks questions to you, so you're saying, what questions do you have? And they ask questions, like kind of tuck that in your brain so you remember like, okay, my perio, I didn't explain this super well, or I didn't explain this concept very well because they had questions on it. How could I refine my explanation better? Again, go to your team members. A lot of them not having dental experience or like dental school experience can explain it in such a simple way that makes sense. And also remember, educators, to really simplify that down into verbiage that your patient's going to understand. I was listening to an office yesterday and they said, just tell the patient we'll see them at their next recall. I was like, guys, recall means nothing to the to the average patient. Recall is like, okay, recall. I have no idea. Like a recall of a product, you're going to send it back. We don't know. So use like, hey, we're going to get you back for your 6-month cleaning. So really watch. That's a big trap that educators fall into is we use words that people don't understand so they can't connect. And when people can't connect, you lose them. They talk about how you can read a book and you can get to the end of the chapter and not even know what you read, but you were reading it. It's because somewhere there was a word that you didn't understand and your brain got stuck there, so you stayed there instead of progressing forward. That's what oftentimes happens with your patients when you over-educate and you don't explain it simply enough. They get stuck on something you said that they feel like they should have known that they don't know, and they hang out back there instead of following along with you to understand treatment better. So that's the educators, and that's how you can fix if that tends to be your natural style. Now, our over and under-diagnosers. I think for both of you, over-diagnosers, why are you over-diagnosing, and do you even know you're over-diagnosing? I think a lot of times that's when every filling becomes a crown, every single one of them. You can also check your numbers on these to see how many crowns, how many fillings, how many night guards, how many periodics, how many SRPs. You can check the stats of your practice to see if you're falling in a line. I'm not a dentist, so over-diagnosers, gosh, like I can give you my input from a team member because sometimes I'm like, whoa, that's pretty aggressive. But I'm not going to tell you because you're the one with the DMD or the DDS. So doctors, like, keep yourself in check. Do you have a production number that you're going after? Is that something you would actually do for yourself? If you're sitting in there, would you actually do that for yourself or for your mom or your daughter or your brother or your son, whatever it is? Would you do those things on them? Because there are over-diagnosers, and when you get crazy town, you lose them. But that doesn't mean to get scared and to not diagnose, because then we fall into the trap of the under-diagnosers. So, of course, I want you to be middle of the road, be comprehensive, which means we're not overbearing and we're not underbearing. Don't be afraid to diagnose. Those under-diagnosers, it's because you're afraid of rejection is typically the cause. Somewhere somebody said no. You don't want people to say no. You came out of dental school, you were really good, you were aggressive, you were comprehensive, and then your case acceptance was low. That doesn't mean people didn't want it. That might just mean that you didn't phrase it in a way to make it easy for them to say yes. You might have been comprehensive, but super complicated as an educator, so they stopped saying yes to your treatment. And had you simplified it, maybe they would have said yes. We don't know. So you got to try a few different ways, but don't keep following the same pattern, hoping to get different results. Change up your style. Don't be afraid of it until you start getting the results you want. I can't tell you guys how many times I have rephrased and recoached and reworked the way I've said things to teams until I got the results I was looking for. So I'm constantly changing, constantly innovating, and you should be doing the same. Now, there's some people that are very much under-diagnosers. If you're doing a ton of MODBL fillings, you're probably an under-diagnoser. Once again, I'm not a dentist, so I'm going on a soapbox that I probably shouldn't be going on, and Mark should probably be on this, but I'm going to go for it anyway. As somebody who's worked with a lot of offices, I've seen a lot, and honestly, I've heard from several different dentists, so that's where I'm coming from for credibility, is that a lot of under-diagnosers were afraid of rejection, so we're not going to diagnose what they should be. An MODBL filling is nice for somebody's pocketbook, but long-term, is that filling and that restoration really what's best for the patient? Probably not, from what I've been told. I've seen cusp fracture off when we did MODBL fillings. It's like a massive composite crown on that tooth. So check your numbers. If you've got a ton of like 4 or 5 surface fillings, you probably are falling in the category of underdiagnosing. And at this point, I'd say check with your dental buddies. Probably check outside of your core group of people. We tend to attract and hang out with people that are very similar to us, and you need to be getting information from people who do not think like you. So hop onto DSN, the Dental Success Network. I think that's a great resource. Get on some Facebook groups. Like, be vulnerable, but ask other people like, hey, are my exams underdiagnosing or overdiagnosing? Like, ask people for feedback because you don't know. You can ask your team members, but that sometimes gets a little weird. But just say, you can also run reports on how many of each procedure code you're actually diagnosing to see, are you falling on underdiagnosing or overdiagnosing? And make sure you really check yourself with those. We as team members can't really help you out with that. That has to come from your doctor peers. So really utilize that, but don't be afraid. Recognize that it's a lot of times by not wanting to be rejected. And that's why we stopped diagnosing. I know I stopped presenting bigger treatment plans because I was scared of being rejected. So I'm like, well, I can slam dunk one filling and put your schedule there, but push myself. Like, I'm going to do quadrant dentistry. I didn't think that I could do huge contracts for consulting. I was really scared. And I had a girl come in totally outside and she's like, Kiera, you should be able to charge a lot more for what you do. You can change a practice easily. And so not to gouge people at all, but I realized like, what is my time worth? Like, what do I think is the best for these people? Just doing these solo visits was not beneficial. So really giving them the tools and resources. And it's crazy because when I became confident and secure in what I felt our team does, our results that we do, I was able to confidently go in and say, this is what I think you need. And this is the price for it. I'm not hung up. My identity is not attached to a client saying yes or no to me. What I have is I know I'm confident in what we do, and that's what I'm going to go after. So I think for all of you, become confident in your diagnosing. Are you confident in that? And if so, beautiful, move forward in that. The next piece is going to be our cost prohibited doctors, treatment coordinators, and it also will tie into insurance. On here, I believe that we project a lot of ourselves onto this. So we're going to project, well, I couldn't afford that. Or, wow, that's a lot of money for me. Or, insurance does renew next year. Okay, just drop all those preconceived notions and stop it. Just present the dollar amounts. Like, don't get weird about it. Don't put yourself in that situation. And I know we so badly want to, and we want to empathize. You can empathize in a million different ways. But a lot of times we prevent patients from getting the best treatment because we think that they're just like us. We think that they can't afford this or they can't afford this. We think all those things. And the reality is we have no idea if that is true or if that's just our idea. We don't know. And we're never going to know. We just need to act. So this is where I come in with assume the yes. Assume every patient will say yes to you and present the full treatment plan. Present the full dollar amount. Please, 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 I'm begging of you, do not use the phrase with your insurance or it looks like your insurance or let's check on your insurance. Because guess what? You just created a reality that we're only focused on insurance and your patient is going to follow suit with you. I'm begging you guys, please do not create that world for yourself because it's a very hard world to get out of. It's very hard. You end up not being able to you end up being very handcuffed and shackled to an insurance company that does not care about you. Insurance companies do not care about patients, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I just mean one size does not fit all. So they say that every person on their plan gets 2 cleanings a year. Well, what if I need perio? Fantastic. We don't really cover that well. What if I need an implant? Fantastic. We don't really cover that well. What if I need fluoride? Fantastic. We don't cover that. Insurance companies are one size fits all and they want to make money. They are in the business of making money. That's why there's so many insurance companies out there. So if you lead with that and you guide with that, your patients are going to lead with that and guide with that, not with what true treatment is. Guys, insurance is a coupon. That's all it is. And it's not a very good coupon. So if you guys go after that, your patients aren't going to get the treatment that they truly need and that they actually want. We've just created a world that is really confusing for them. So the tip for that would be drop the insurance verbiage. Stop saying with your insurance or let's check on your insurance. Just say, you know what? The great news is we can totally help you out with that. We're going to get this treatment done. Let's get this treatment done. Let's get this scheduled and let's find a way to make this work out. I don't even talk about insurance. I'm not going to worry about it. I will max those benefits and I will do the best I can to maximize that coupon, but I will not guide by that coupon, period. And I think if you guys can focus on that, if you guys can see that, you guys can recognize that your case acceptance, your diagnosing will go up because you're no longer shackled and handcuffed to something that really doesn't benefit you or the patients. So that's our cost conscientious, like stop assuming everyone's just like you because they're not. And stop leading with the, well, let's check your insurance. A lot of times doctors, we say, oh, we'll just check on your insurance or we should see what your insurance covers because we're afraid of that rejection piece once again. I've done it, guys. I'm not a doctor, but I've totally done that because I'm trying to get away from it and skirt away from a no. That's all I'm doing. Instead, just walk into that, own that. You know what? Insurance is a really fantastic, terrible coupon. So we're going to maximize that, but we're going to make sure we keep you healthy. So there's always a solution. Our job's to find that solution. I promise you, if you have that mentality, you will start to see a shift and a change in the way you treatment plan, in the way you diagnose, because you're no longer shackled to insurance. So that's our cost and our insurance doctors. Then we have our people pleasers. And guys, we're in a people industry. That's why we joined dentistry, because we love people. The bulk of people, when I ask them, why are you in dentistry? They say, Well, Kiera, it's because I love people and I want to help people. So it's not wrong for us to want to be people pleasers. It's not wrong for us to want to do what the patient wants. I mean, it's their mouth, for crying out loud. We want them to do what they want to do. Yes, you're correct. Absolutely. But when a doctor or a treatment coordinator decides that the patient and what the patient wants to do, that's what they're going to try and do, and that's all they're going to do, you have stepped out of the role of expert and you've gone into friend. You are the expert in the dental office. You are the one that knows. You went to school. You went to training. I can make a decision of, you know what, I think I want to do this. It could be a healthcare. It could be an eating. It could be all these things. I can do the research, but at the end of the day, the experts in the field, please do not take advantage of that. But you are the expert. You are the expert. So let me know what I need to do. Like I used on my last podcast, the example of a child who wants to eat candy. Like they love candy. And a mom who really wants to be a best friend is going to be like, yes, eat candy all day long. And when I think of this example, I think of one of my dear friends. We took her little boy to Disneyland. And I remember he kept asking for more and more candy. And we're at Disneyland, the happiest place on earth. And I remember we were sitting at the parade. And the next thing you know, little 2-year-old Madden just pukes everywhere. And my friend, she's like, oh, yep, mama word right there. I definitely let him eat all the candy he wanted. And here's the consequence for it. And that has stuck with me because she's an awesome mom. But an awesome mom doesn't mean you give candy. It doesn't mean that you give in to every single thing that you want. An awesome dad doesn't mean that you just let your kids run rampant on you. That's not an awesome parent. An awesome parent has balance and they're willing to set guidelines and parameters. At the end of it, our patients need to choose treatment. Yes, but you're the expert. So making sure like you can find out what direction they want to go. Do you want fixed or removable? But let them know. Do a 30-second education on it. But at the end of it, helping people know the pros and cons in a very simplistic way. You've got to work on that because it's sometimes tricky or sometimes a little hard to explain things simply. But letting them know, do you want fixed or removable? Do you want this thing to come in and out? Sometimes with removable, like, is it cost? Is it function? Is it longevity? Or is it cosmetic? Like, what are we looking for? Those are 4 great questions. And I did a podcast on that for your hygienist, for those of you, because then you can really figure out what the patient really wants. And then from there, we just build upon that. So the patient still has say, but we're still being the expert. We're still being the one that's recommending because you went to school. You work in this field. You work in this position. You know, dental assistants, you've seen this 100 times. Like a patient saying they want a denture. You've seen the sores. You've seen it pop out. You've seen the adjustments. You've seen that they're in the dental office forever. You've also seen an awesome implant case where they are so happy and they're eating steak and their lives are incredible. Like you've seen that. You can be a testimony to these people of exactly what happened and how great it is for these people. Like you can be that person. So with that said, I would say, do not be afraid to be the expert. Don't be the friend, be the expert. And you can ask the guiding questions to let you know what the patient really wants, and then you can build upon it from there. So we go after what they want. A child wants to eat food. From there, we get to help guide them on the type of food that they should eat. They want to eat food. That's what they want. Fantastic. That's great. There's nothing wrong with that. I want fixed or removable. I want longevity. Fantastic. I know what you want. I'm going to help you build from there of what I know from experience is going to make you happy. As a parent, you know that eating candy all day long is going to make you sick to your stomach. You know that. You have experience, life experience, so you can guide and prevent and protect the people. So from there, that's how you guys are going to be able to really work with your patients. You're going to be able to have, and now you guys know these different types of people, these different types of doctors, these different types of treatment coordinators. Excuse me. You can see, who are you? Who are you in this whole scenario? Which one are you on? Who are you? Are you the educator? Are you the over-diagnoser or the under-diagnoser? Are you the cost-driven doctor? Are you the insurance-driven doctor? There's another one of fear that I didn't mention. The fear doctor. I think that ties into a lot of what we talked about of rejection. We're afraid of patients not liking us. We're afraid of telling them what they really need. We're afraid of if we tell them that, oh, shoot, I know I said it was going to be a filling and now it's really a crown. Like, I'm afraid, so I'm just going to give them a lot of discounts so they don't say no to me. Be confident. If you're not confident in your skills, go get training. Treatment coordinators, if you're not confident, call me up and I'll help you become confident in your treatment planning. Whomever you are, I really, truly challenge you, become confident, and then you're not going to be worried about fear. Fear comes, I believe, from a lot of different things, but a lot of it's just preconceived or these ideas in our mind that aren't actually real. We think an outcome's going to turn out a certain way, or we think that we have to give them a discount or they'll be mad at us. No. Guess what? Things change. Life changes. Be confident in that. Like, hey, good news is it went from a filling to a crown and we were able to save your tooth. That's the good news. Don't even worry about it. Yes, there's an additional cost. There will be 1 or 2 patients that get angry with you. And we remember those because they stand out, because the bulk of the people love and adore you. You just remember those 1 or 2. It's okay. I do the same thing. But I have to remind myself that's 1 or 2. It's not 75, 85, 90 that don't like me. 1 or 2 people. And if you have a lot of people complaining about you, drop the ego. As crummy as that is, listen to what they're saying. See if they have truth. See how you can become better. But drop that fear, because when we live our lives with fear and with what everyone else is thinking about us, it's a very shallow and unfulfilling way to live. It's a hard way to do treatment. It's a hard way to be a doctor. It's a hard way to be a treatment coordinator, dental assistant, hygienist, whatever position. So who are you? Hygienist, same question. Treatment coordinator, dental assistants, doctors, who are you? Are the educator? Are you the over-diagnoser or the under-diagnoser? Hygienist, you can equally be guilty in this world. Equally guilty. Are you talking perio? Yes or no? Over-diagnoser, under-diagnoser. I will tell you, there are a lot of hygienists out there so afraid that a patient's going to be angry with them, and they will not diagnose perio. They will do a bloody prophy, which I do not believe is the right thing to do, because you're just teaching your patient, like, hey, it's totally fine. Don't even worry about it. I'm going to just, keep doing a bloody prophy. I'm never going to talk to you about perio. No. Guess what? They've got perio. Have that conversation. Be okay with that. It's okay. Have that conversation with them. Don't be afraid. I will tell you that the bulk of hygienists are underdiagnosing perio. That is the number one undiagnosed procedure in dentistry. So, hygienists, are you an under or an over-diagnoser? Are we based on fear? Are we cost? Are we cost and insurance driven? And are we the people pleaser, the one that is willing to just do whatever they want just because they want it? Check yourself. I've given you guys tips and tricks on how to change that, on ways to change whomever you are, your natural tendencies, what to do. Reach out if you want more questions. Shoot me an email, hello@thedentalateam.com. This is something that we see all the time in every single position. So check yourself. Who are you? You can even send me an email. Like I said before, I am this and I want help with it. Fantastic. If you can recognize who you are, you can start to change. Little changes over time create incredible results. All right, guys. Thanks for hanging out with me. And as always, can't wait to catch you guys next time on the Dental 18 podcast. And that wraps it up for another episode of the Dental 18 podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.